Okay, I'm going to start by welcoming our presenter today. We have Katerina or Kate Schaefer and Sarah Finney, who introduce themselves, or Kate will introduce herself, and then share their thoughts about establishing a partnership with the full division and assessment office. Kate Schaefer is a PhD student in the Assessment and Measurement PhD program at James Madison University. She's held a graduate assistantship position as an assessment specialist within the Center for Assessment and Research Studies for the last 4 years. She previously held the role evaluating institution-wide student learning in academic affairs. And Sarah, who is not with us today, is a professor for the Assessment and Measurement PhD program at James Madison University. She's also the associate director of the Center for Assessment and Research Studies, and she contributed to this work, but won't be here today. I mentioned earlier that there will be opportunities for questions and answers. So as you put them into the chat, we will monitor that and we will help address or bring the questions to Kate's attention as she goes through the session. Okay. So at this point, I'm going to turn it over to Kate. And thank you so much, Kate, for joining us today.
Thank you so much. All right, I'm going to go ahead and share my screen.
Speaking of sharing screens, I forgot to share this screen. So this is who we have today. All right, I'm going to stop sharing so you can share.
Okay.
There you go.
All righty. Did everyone see my screen? Okay, perfect. So thank you so much for that introduction. I'm really excited to talk to you all today about the work that we do within James Madison University, me within my assessment office with our Division of Student Affairs, and what our partnership kind of looks like. This is a presentation that Sarah and I both put on at Assessment Institute, IUPUI, this past October. So I'm really excited to share it with you all today. So I am a student. I finished my master's degree about 2 years ago now, and I am still working on my PhD in assessment and measurement, but I've held a role within the Center for Assessment and Research Studies at JMU for about 4 years now. And Sarah, who also happens to be my advisor, also works within the center. And something that's going to be a theme throughout the presentation today is going to be kind of the way in which our center functions at our university and how kind of the structure of our university has really helped us with our partnerships. So I have a couple of different student learning outcomes that hopefully we'll be able to touch on as a result of this presentation today. I'm going to move something really quickly. Okay. So I'm hoping that as a result of you all attending this presentation that we'll be able to have some maybe discussion or questions at the end of this, kind of comparing and contrasting what assessment partnerships are versus assessment policing. I'm hoping that we can explain the importance of including key people from the Student Affairs Division in the assessment planning process. I'm also hoping that we can identify different strategies to service student affairs educators' assessment needs. And at the end of this presentation, we're going to kind of finish up by going through a lot of the materials, the pre-existing materials that we as a center at JMU have publicly available for student affairs professionals. So with that being said, I'm going to go ahead and dive in and really just start this presentation off by comparing and contrasting what we see more as assessment policing versus an assessment partnership. To do that, I'm going to talk a little bit about our center, the Assessment for the Center for Assessment and Research Studies, our mission, our vision, all of that as a center really revolves around providing quality assessment services to our university. And that could be within the Division of Student Affairs. It could also be within academic affairs. Our center works in a lot of different places within our university. But that vision, and I have both of these statements up here, I'm not going to read them fully, but just giving you an idea about what our goals are as a center. And it really revolves around providing that quality assessment service and helping others make evidence-based decisions. Now, within our center, I have worked specifically with student affairs, and our group is called SAS. It's the Student Affairs Assessment Support Services. So I'm going to kind of refer to SAS throughout this presentation, and that's just the group of graduate students and faculty members within our center that service student affairs. We have a couple of values and objectives for our group for SAS. Our values have to do with enhancing student affairs professionals' knowledge and skills as it relates to assessment, the use of results, and we're going to kind of see use of results as a theme throughout this presentation as well as some cross-disciplinary collaboration. And we hope that as a result of working with SAS, that we will be able to help our student affairs professionals be able to develop their own assessment plans, to use their results, to disseminate their findings. And a lot of that has to do with our general goal of helping our student affairs professionals build some self-efficacy around assessment. So when I first designed this presentation, Sarah and I were thinking, we talk so much about, how we're hoping that our student affairs professionals at JMU can benefit from the services we provide, but we didn't talk a ton about how we SAS benefit, how does this make me happy to do this type of work? And Sarah and I had a long discussion, and we just wanted to share that doing this type of work gets us really energized. We enjoy helping other people with their assessment needs. We, as an end goal, want to help others make our university a better learning space and a better space for students. And we know that assessment can be really daunting and scary for people who have had no exposure to assessment or maybe have been put in the role of needing to do assessment work on top of the work that they're already doing. And so we help to try and make what is unfamiliar in the assessment world a little bit more familiar by building that self-efficacy. Kind of more specifically, we get this joy and energy by using evidence-informed programming that really should increase student learning and development. Again, that evidence and using evidence to inform programming, to design programming, helping others see what works and what doesn't work. How can we design a program that is built to work? And just kind of generally, to kind of summarize, we all just really get energized by doing this assessment work. And that's coming from me who has an assessment background. That's kind of my view of why I personally enjoy this work. So this is kind of just my half of the partnership. We have this whole other half of the partnership, and that's our assessment professionals that we work with, or our student affairs professionals that we work with. So I wanted to talk a little bit about what it means to be the assessment police versus the assessment partner, because we have found a lot of success doing assessment work within student affairs because we try to work more as a partner and less as the police. And so policing could look like being required to submit an assessment report. And that's what's happening on our academic affairs kind of side of the house is a lot of our programs are required to submit a report. And that could look a little bit more like policing. it ends up putting this focus more on accountability rather than use of results. And policing could also look like some sort of penalty for poor results,
Yeah.
which is not what we want. What we try and do with our assessment partnership is to not require the submission of reports. We much would rather programs submit reports to us in order to receive feedback rather than just to, get a box checked. We hope that this shifts that focus to student learning, behavior changes, programmatic improvement, rather than just on accountability. Because the focus isn't to, okay, just submit this report and get done with it. The focus is, if you would like feedback on something, please give us a report and we can give you that feedback for student learning, behavior changes, or programmatic improvement, whatever work that you want to be doing. We can give you that type of feedback. We give no penalties for poor results. That does not mean that we want to keep programs that aren't necessarily working, but we really encourage programs to submit reports that are not, fully completed. We want programs who have just started working on their student learning outcomes to submit their outcomes to us so they can receive feedback. But they're not going to be penalized for not having started collecting data. We really just want to meet them where they are. We also like to provide resources to our practitioners, and we try and make those resources freely available. So not only could they come to us and be given those resources, but we advertise pretty heavily the resources that we have available online so that our partners can either come to us for maybe individual consultation. We can also provide materials that they can work through on their own, depending on their level of understanding of assessment. There's some key elements of our partnership. The first is that we, as a center, function like any other university office. So, for example, a lot of universities have a writing center that students can use as a resource to get feedback on papers that they're working on. The libraries have a lot of resources that students and faculty members also can use for whatever services they provide. So we function like one of those university offices. Now, the division might come to us for requests, or individual offices can come to us. So that could look like an associate vice president asking for a specific type of professional development to be put on. But it could also be an individual office asking for assistance in assessing a new program that they have. It can be we can get those requests from any person. When the division comes to us, they usually ask us to provide resources based on a specific audience. Are these new to assessment professionals? Are these people who are more seasoned, who just want some type of professional development in a specific area? And typically they tell us what type of dosage they want. So is this going to be a 1-hour session? Do we have 3 hours that we can work with? Then we, as an office, have the autonomy to decide what specific content is going into that session, and then whether or not we have the resources or time to support that project. So that means that our needs are dictated by the division. They have that power. But we, SAS, within our assessment office, do have ultimate control over who we get to work with. So for example, the last, I think it says 2 years on here, but that was back in October. So almost 2.5 years now, we as an office, along with our division, have been working on creating a rubric to guide assessment practice, reporting, and feedback. So this is a meta assessment rubric. So different programs will submit assessment reports, and then the rubric can be used to provide feedback on the assessment process that program went through. And this was a ton of work for our center. It required a huge investment of our time as a center, from the time of our division members to work on this rubric. Now, we're at the point now where student affairs professionals are encouraged by the division, so not by the center, to submit reports and get feedback. And then the student affairs professionals receive that feedback from the division, not from the center. And there's no penalties for critical feedback. And so we're hoping that this system can build a little bit more. Right now, we're in more of a piloting phase, and we're still investing a lot of time and resources in terms of graduate assistants that are working on this project. And so we're at the point now where the division is still asking us to be involved in this project. But for example, if we find that next year we're not getting a lot of support, or it's this rubric that we've created is not being used as much, we can decide that we're not going to be able to invest our time in that project anymore. So it's this balance of give and take between us and with the division. So I'm going to talk a little bit more now about the structure of our university and kind of the uniqueness that we've been able to leverage to build this partnership with our division. So I know this is probably really small and you don't need to be able to see everything on here, but this is the organizational chart for JMU. And the thing that I want to point out is that our center, so the Center for Assessment and Research Studies, falls under academic affairs, which is completely separate from student affairs. So we do not report to the vice president of student affairs. We report directly to the vice provost, actually, of the university. So we have this separation, and that separation ends up being something that's really useful for us as a center. So within the academic side of the house, which is where we technically are housed, we have the Center for Assessment and Research Studies, and we have some full-time faculty that work within our center, as well as some graduate assistants. We have anywhere between 10 to 15 graduate assistants that are working within CARS at any given time. And then within student affairs, we're kind of aware of who the key kind of players are within our division, who is going to be really involved in assessment in those decision-making pieces that we would need to partner with. So of course, we try and communicate frequently with our vice president, as well as the associate vice presidents of student affairs, and have some type of partnership with them. And for a long time now, we've had a really great partnership with the Director of Finance, IT, and Assessment, which is a super great person to be involved with, as you will notice that this person is in charge of both finance and assessment. So not only are they in charge of the assessment work, but also they control the money. So as we know, it's really important to fund assessment work. And so we know that structurally, that's kind of a key player that we need to work with. And then, of course, we sometimes partner with directors of individual offices. So, for example, we've worked a lot the last couple of years with the Office of Student Accountability and Restorative Practices, and we work pretty closely with that director. I'm going to pull up a couple of different kind of structural comparisons that we can think about in terms of, what is the culture of assessment within a university? How does the structure of the university influence how assessment might take place? And I've kind of interpreted these structures for JMU, but I highly encourage you to think about some of these questions that I'm going to ask over the next couple of slides in terms of your university, because this has been really, really helpful for us in figuring out how we can make assessment work at our university. So this second edition of Coordinating Divisional and Departmental Student Affairs Assessment just came out in 2024. And this is a great book. I'm actually going to go into one specific chapter that discusses the organizational frames of assessment and how we can frame our organization in 4 main areas. We have this structural component, this political component, this human component, as well as this symbolic component. And I have some questions here, but I'm going to go ahead and go to the next slide that has the actual diagram that's really showing how these 4 different frames are constantly surrounding our assessment coordinators within in student affairs. So I've gone through and I've thought about how these components are functioning at our university. And I know that in order to make assessment work, I need to know what's going on structurally. And I know that at my university, our academic and student affairs divisions are separate, and our office is within academic affairs. I just need to be aware of that in order to start thinking about how assessment might work. I also know, and I mentioned this previously, that student affairs assessment and finance are going to be conducted by the same person. I can use that. That can be something that's helpful. I can partner with that person. Strategically, I have to be thinking, what are the goals and aims of my university? And something that has been really emphasized the last couple of years is the curricular approach. So I know that my university is trying to restructure our student affairs division using the curricular approach. So that's something that I need to be aware of as I'm trying to conduct assessment. Politically, that curricular approach also kind of ties in. I know politically that I need to be aware that that's an important goal of my university. I need to think about how resources are going to be allocated, and if I'm at a university that is going to provide more funding or more resources for programs that work. Something that we do within SAS to justify our work is to make sure the work that we do can map to the CAS standards, because we know politically that's something that's important for our university. We're also just generally kind of aware of who cares about our assessment work, who's supportive, who is less supportive, those type of political decisions or things that we have to think about. There is also this human component, and that kind of also gets into that political component of, who is supporting our work. And we're really lucky that our vice president and a lot of our associate vice presidents do support the work that SAS does because we're able to show success in a lot of the programs that we help with their assessment processes. We also need to be aware, as an assessment office, who is providing the trainings. And at our university, SAS is the main provider of assessment trainings, but there are other people that we need to know, who is doing that work. We need to know how we can get people involved in the work. We need to think about, are we going to be able to pay people to do assessment work? So for example, I talked earlier about that rubric that we've worked to develop. And last year we piloted that rubric, and we brought together some student affairs professionals to be the ones to actually read and rate the rubric. That meaning that our student affairs professionals could be giving their coworkers feedback on their assessment processes. And we were able to incentivize that work by paying some of those raters that were able to do it for that entire week. So sometimes we're able to pay, sometimes we're not able to pay, and it really just depends on how the university is structured. And that's something that we've really pushed for to encourage people to do this extra kind of assessment work. Like I just said, we're trying to get that feedback, that process with that rubric that we've designed to be a feedback system, to bring back that human component for people to provide feedback for their coworkers. We're trying to pull that back in. Then this last frame gets into a little bit more of the cultural side of what is going on with your division. We need to be aware of how we can align the work that we're doing with assessment with the just general culture of student affairs. And for us, we often rely on the CAS standards. I know I mentioned that previously. That's because we know that the CAS standards are important for our division. So that's something that we rely on a lot. And then just generally, how can we make assessment tell a story? If we can tell the story of student success and student growth, or even, we're not seeing success, we're not seeing growth, whatever we're seeing, how can we turn that into a story to kind of improve from where we are? So I just find this graphic really helpful in thinking about what the structure of your university is. And again, I'm coming from the assessment office. I'm not within student affairs. So from my assessment office, what can I do to partner with my student affairs professionals? So another framework or way of thinking about assessment that I think is super helpful comes from an article by Heather Strine-Patterson. And Heather also did a structured conversation. I've listened to it. It's awesome. Highly recommend watching that. It's on YouTube. And she has a really great framework for understanding how assessment can function as leadership. When she says assessment is leadership, what does that mean? So typically, our division directors don't have a ton of experience in assessment or are told that they have to do assessment as part of their job, which really does a disservice both to the director as well as to the assessment that needs to be or you want to actually conduct. And what she really emphasizes in her paper is that the leaders have to be the ones that are engaging in assessment work in order for assessment to serve as a learning improvement tactic. So we're not trying to use assessment for accountability just to check something off. We're trying to form that story of what's going on with our students using assessment so that we can, change what we're doing in the future if we need to. She talks about this as a multi-level assessment process because we have our divisional leaders, our departmental leaders, as well as our student affairs educators. This is the figure that she has in her paper. Again, if you watch her structured conversation, she walks through this. I think it's a really awesome way to look at and think about how assessment could occur at all, or how leadership can be used in the assessment process to encourage learning improvement. We have our divisional leaders here who are communicating with our departmental leaders. They're taking whatever those divisional goals, those priorities are, and communicating those to the departmental leaders. The departmental leaders are able to communicate those goals to the student affairs educators who are actually on the ground doing that assessment work. And then we see here that that those results, those assessment results, move back up, not only to the departmental leaders, but also to the divisional leaders. So we can get to the point where we are telling this story of what's going on with our students so that we can make, strategic priorities for the entire division based on that story. So at our university, our divisional leader is our vice president of student affairs and our associate vice presidents of student affairs. Our departmental leaders are our individual office directors. And then our student affairs educators are our assistant directors, our associate directors, our coordinators. And something that Heather talks about in her paper as well as in her video is how sometimes in smaller universities, a lot of these people overlap or we might not see as many of them, but just giving you a kind of a background into what our university looks like. So this organizational chart is available online. This is JMU's organizational chart. We have our divisional leaders as well as our departmental leaders within each of our different offices. And then our student affairs educators work within each of those different offices. Something that you will see here is that the Center for Assessment and Research Studies, which is the office that I work in, is not in any of these organizational charts. And that was something that I mentioned earlier. We are within academic affairs. So our office, we don't fall under any of these people. We do not work within student affairs. Now, because we have this kind of or unique structure, or just generally because we're separate from student affairs, that really helps us to overcome some barriers. So a potential barrier could be that some associate vice presidents in the division might not support our work and others might support our work. And that is something that we see. I'm not going to sugarcoat it and say that we are able to partner with every single person in the division. We're definitely not able to do that. But we need to, but that is just something that we run into. And we know that other people in other universities also run into that. Another barrier could be that the division might prefer that our work be prescribed rather than subscribed. And what I mean by that is we don't want to be assigned to work with programs that are not doing as well. We much prefer to have programs that are motivated to do assessment come to us. And that way we are able to kind of, do more showing rather than telling of the work that we do. We would much rather show how assessment can be successful and improve student learning and behavior rather than force people to improve assessment if that's not a goal of theirs. Of course, we wish it was everyone's goal, but that's just something that we have, the kind of our mindset in our office. So if we were housed within the Student Affairs Division, what is this? Oh, what is happening? There we go. So if we were housed within the Student Affairs Division, Student Affairs leadership could completely control the resources that we provide, as well as who we provide those resources to. But because we are housed in a separate division, we're able to function like any other service provider on campus. So like the Writing Center, the Career Center, and the Student Affairs Division can use us like a resource. This means that programs can come to us as a partner rather than be policed by us. So that's why I say we would rather be subscribed to rather than prescribed. We want to function as a partner who we can build some mutual trust with. And we hope that because we are housed separately from student affairs, that we can, if we do have a partnership with our division, which we do, we know that that partnership is built on mutual trust and mutual agreement, kind of through the key players that we've been partnering with for years. This means that we, SAS, are able to provide high-quality assessment services to really motivated student affairs professionals who want to work with us. Programs want to work with us because we kind of help show them if their programs are working and maybe even for whom their programs are working. The division still has the power to choose the dosage of our work, and they do have final approval over which offices receive support of the work that we do. So we have this partnership that is built on that mutual trust. The division can choose the dosage of our work, which offices, ultimately that we work with, but we can choose the content and ultimately decide if we have the capacity to do that work. So we have a couple of different strategies that we use as an office to work with our student affairs educators. So I'm going to talk about those main different areas now. So we have three main areas of support that we provide. We provide direct one-on-one consultation that's really similar to other resources that a university might provide. It has a really flexible meeting schedule, and we usually have deliverables that our partners and we work through after our meetings. We also provide professional development to larger groups of people within the division, and we have some various doses of workshops that we've kind of developed and honed over the years. We have various 1, 2, or even 3-hour workshops. We have a 5-day, 8-hour-a-day kind of intensive assessment workshop. And then new to this year, we have been developing a distributed year-long training that's once a month that's called Assess and Progress. And then finally, we have a lot of asynchronous materials on our website. We have an evidence-informed programming course, as well as various articles and presentations that we try to keep really updated on our website to be able to, provide freely. So in terms of the direct one-on-one consultation that we do, we meet with either departmental directors, assistant directors, as well as program coordinators one-on-one. We have an online system that we use that our clients make appointments with when it's convenient for them. They make an appointment, they come in. Now, they might only come in for a single meeting, and we've definitely had a lot of student affairs professionals who have very specific questions that could be addressed in one single meeting. And then we also have people that come to us that have longer term projects. Maybe they want to completely revamp their assessment processes. And we might be able to commit to weekly appointments for an entire semester or an entire year. So for example, we've worked with our Office of Student Accountability and Restorative Practices for almost 2 years now. So a couple of different assessment coordinators from those offices have worked with us weekly for, like I said, almost 2 years. Now, we provide these types of consultation services to any type of program that is at our university. So for example, a lot of the programming that's at the Office of Student Accountability and Restorative Practices is mandated. So there might be some alcohol prevention programming that's mandated to students who've gotten in trouble for some type of reason. But we also provide services to programs that students might volunteer to sign up for. We provide services to long programs, short programs, to programs that have, 1,000 students, programs that have only, maybe 5 students, as well as working with programs that might be newer, that are still in the developmental process, or programs that have been, functioning for years. We work with any of those programs, and again, that dosage is kind of decided by the client, if they want to just have that one-off meeting or schedule something longer. Now, the division as a whole will also ask us periodically to do some type of workshop. And we have some various one-day workshops that we provide. We have a 1-hour workshop that we've provided kind of during like an orientation type day for new student affairs professionals that focuses on bare minimum assessment basics. What's a really good introduction that we can give in 1 hour to people who have no exposure to assessment. So we have that built. We have a 2-hour-long, a little bit more intensive workshop on evidence-informed programming that we've built out and worked through with different groups of people. We also provide a 3-hour-long workshop to students who are in a graduate master's program called the College Student Personnel Administrator Program, or CSPA program. These are students who are future student affairs professionals. And so we provide this a little bit more intensive workshop to those students within the university that gives a pretty thorough introduction to assessment. Now, the division can request these types of services from our office, and we typically agree to them because we have the time and staffing to do those types of workshops. I mean, if we didn't have the time, we didn't have the staff, we wouldn't be able to do it. But again, it kind of gets back to that partnership, that give and take. What are we capable of doing? What does the division want? Where can we meet to be able to provide those services? And I know I've mentioned this a bunch of times, but all of the resources that we create, including the resources for these workshops, we try to freely kind of share with colleagues, both nationally and internationally. We also have a week-long assessment training that is a lot more intensive. There's two different versions of this training. The first one is conducted in the summer. It is 5 days, covers assessment basics. There's a project that you complete at the end. And typically a mix of faculty and student affairs professionals are a part of this, as well as people who are internal to our university. The other version of this training is 4 days instead of 5 days. This is just an internal training that we do. There's no project, which is why it's 4 days instead of 5 days. Usually this is JMU assessment student affairs professionals, as well as those CSPA students that I mentioned previously who might be a part of this training. There's more of a focus on tying the assessment cycle processes to meeting professional standards. Because that assessment 101 in the summer, a lot of times those people are not specific to student affairs that are a part of that training, but the assessment 101 that we do internally in January is. Now, the last kind of service that we are starting to provide that we've been piloting this past year is a year-long training that we are calling Assess and Progress. So this happens on the first Friday of every month. It is about 3 hours long, and we decided to do this training because we wanted to shift from these intensive hour-long or 3-hour-long, week-long trainings to get some more distributed practice. And we know that those other trainings can be really exhausting. And we didn't want people to have the mindset of, okay, well, the training's over, so now the assessment work is over. We wanted to have this long kind of cycle, this distributed practice where we could work on assessment with a group of assessment student affairs professionals throughout the entire year. Now, this covers the full assessment cycle. The first session talked about values intervention to really try and hopefully get people to be a little bit more engaged in assessment throughout the year. Then we move into program theory, but we cover every one of the typical assessment cycle steps throughout the year, kind of ending the year with using results. And we, at that point, really encourage the people that have attended to submit reports to be rated by that rubric that I mentioned earlier. We decided that we needed to have something like this because at our university, we have a really high turnover of staff within the student affairs division. And a lot of our assessment or our student affairs professionals that come in don't have assessment training. And so we knew that people would be coming in kind of throughout the year. And so we're able to provide this professional development kind of opportunity monthly, knowing that some people might not be able to be there for the whole time. This requires a ton of resources from my center. It's about 20 hours per week based off of all of the graduate assistants that are working on it, the faculty members that are working on it, that are facilitating the training. Now, I did say that this was a pilot. A lot of the other services that my office provides, we've been doing for years. But this is new to this year. So the reason that we kind of included this in the presentation is because we wanted to be, open and honest about some of the pushback that we have received. I mean, it is a lot of time and effort that we're asking student affairs professionals to be a part of. I mean, it's 3 hours once a month. And we had to get, we had to work with our student affairs vice president to kind of justify the work that we wanted to do. And kind of understandably, there has been pushback from some of the associate vice presidents just wondering how we can justify, this amount of time and effort that we're putting into this type of programming. On the other side, we know why we want to put on the programming. We know that, for us, it helps us to make some relationships with offices that we haven't worked with before. And it would be great to have other offices kind of see the work that we're doing and want to come to us for some assessment consultation type work. We've also been able to create new materials, again, that we're trying to share publicly and share freely. And throughout this time, we're testing this idea of, if you train them, they will engage in assessment argument. So we're hoping that by providing this training that we'll see more people engage in assessment because we're trying to build that self-efficacy in assessment, try and make it less scary, try and make it more accessible. So that's what we're hoping to see out of this. But like I said, this is the first year, it's still being piloted. So I can't tell you for certain that this has been super successful, but definitely something that we're going to keep trying to refine. Okay. So there's a lot of different resources that we provide, not only to clients that come to us or during professional development sessions, but just resources that we have freely available through our website. So if you go and if you just type in Google, search JMU SASS, JMU SAS, you will find our website. I also have the link down here, and we have a ton of assessment resources on our website. If you go to our website, you click on the assessment cycle right here. It will take you to the full assessment cycle and resources for each one of those different steps in the cycle. So you can go to student learning outcomes, program creation and mapping, all the way down to reporting and use of results. And there is just a ton of information and resources through every step of this cycle on this part of our webpage. So we use our website pretty frequently when we consult with different programs. We have tried to make it, easily accessible and understandable. And so like I mentioned earlier that sometimes we have some deliverables for our one-on-one consultations, and we might assign ourselves some homework and we might assign our clients some homework. And homework could look like going to our website. Maybe our client is interested in designing a new instrument to measure something. We might direct them to that part of our page to start working through that, that information and come to us with questions. And then that can be the focus of our next meeting. So not only am I just saying, this is a great resource for people who might not be as familiar with assessment, but even if you are very familiar with assessment, we hope that this can be something that you can also recommend to others. We have another page on our website fully focused on evidence-informed programming and how you can find evidence to support the program that you are working to design. So this part of our website has a ton of information on how you can find research that might support the program that you're trying to build, what it means to have high-quality research that supports what you're trying to build. Tons of information on that here. We also publish and try and provide any of the materials that we make for any presentations or publications. We try to freely provide those within our website. So I just have a couple of different titles thrown up here, but you can see that we have articles that we've written about program theory, about the standards, about finding good measures. So you can, of course, look through these articles, you can cite them. But a lot of that is linked within our website, and you can find it through that assessment cycle piece and find, not only, things that we've written about the different steps of the assessment cycle, but also these different pieces that we've published or presented on. We also have a website completely dedicated to evidence-informed programming, and any type of presentation, publication, professional development, workshop, anything that we have done thus far, we try and keep this page pretty updated. And it's organized with all of our resources from order of like easier to implement to a little bit more intensive to implement. So if you want to learn more about evidence-informed programming, the easiest thing that you could maybe look at is some slides that we used on a presentation for evidence-informed programming. But we also have a 4 to 8 week long course on evidence-informed programming. You can use this QR code. The website is also listed there. I'm going to go ahead and show you that this is what the course looks like. We have different modules for that you work through. There are readings. I'm going to go ahead and next one. There are readings for each module, reading questions, videos, PowerPoints, homework. So obviously this is much more intensive than looking through some slides if you're interested in learning more about evidence-informed programming. But again, all of those resources we make publicly available. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and summarize now because I know that that was a ton of information. We are really lucky with the relationship that our office has with our Division of Student Affairs, and we've really been able to just keep that partnership throughout the years because we are trying not to act like the police. We work really hard to avoid requiring people submit reports to us. That's never going to be our goal. We want people to come to us for feedback and to gain self-efficacy in the work that they are doing. We have this divisional structure that helps, this university structure that helps us stay separate from student affairs. And that means that we have kind of ultimate power over what type of projects we want or do not want to be involved in. And we're able to keep some trust with our partners in the work that we do. We have these key players that we make sure to communicate with and work with, and we try and understand who is caring about assessment, who wants to be involved, and try and make sure that those people are involved with us. And again, those needs can be dictated by our division, but we have kind of this ultimate control over the content and who we work with. So the division trusts that we know our stuff well enough to be able to provide professional development services, and we kind of trust the division to tell us, who needs our services, and which often and kind of trust in our partners to just kind of keep that relationship going. Finally, we try and provide all different types of dosage of resources, and we try to make those resources freely available. So we could have a really close one-on-one relationship with an office who we're working with directly and providing feedback to, and that can be that type of relationship. We could also have people that we've only been emailing with back and forth, and we can provide resources through our website. So we try and have just a lot of different doses available so that people can choose, what's going to work for them, and how can we meet them where they are. If you have any questions, I know that we've been monitoring the chat. I'm happy to answer questions. I know Sarah isn't here today, but Sarah's email is here. She is always happy to answer emails. So yeah, I'm going to go ahead and stop there.
Thank you so much, Kate. Very much appreciate the details you were able to provide today. We're happy to take some questions. If there's anything you have, you can feel free to put that into the chat. In the meantime, I just thought I would mention that a couple things that really stood out to me. One, I love the pre-designed workshops that you have, sort of workshop in a can. Here's what we offer. And your ability to sort of use that as a way to demonstrate that you're a resource to the units. I think that's really helpful. The other thing that I thought that you said that I'd like to expand for another way of thinking for individuals who are in student affairs, and I noticed today we have several people who joined us who are within a division of student affairs, and they're specialists in student affairs, assessment specialists. For those folks, I think that the approach you talked about, to paraphrase you, leave the supervision to the supervisors. I think that could be applicable for those within student affairs who oversee some element of assessment also. They're not the assessment police. If you are on an assessment team within the Division of Student Affairs, try to distinguish between your role as a service provider or a resource provider and leave the supervising to those people who actually oversee or supervise those units. And I think that'll help support a much more supportive partnership.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, great. Very helpful. I'm going to give a couple more minutes to see if there are any other questions. And I'm hoping that maybe even after this, if you could share with us some of the information, some details about the meta assessment rubric that you suggested. That really piques my interest. So we can include that in the list of resources that we'll be providing if you have any information on that.
I almost do. So we submitted it for publication, and actually it was accepted yesterday.
Wonderful.
So that is kind of coming up in the next next couple of months. But the rubric is freely available online, and then we have a lot of materials that go along with the rubric. We have mock reports that we used to train and kind of calibrate our raters on that have been pre-scored. So there is a score. So we have those training materials. And we also have there's an equity piece to the rubric that can be a little bit more difficult to score. So we have a lot of materials that go along, equity resources that go along with that part of the rubric as well.
Great. Someone else mentioned here that they really loved, this is John, really loved the 4-squared political, structural, etc. diagram. Important perspective to apply to assessment relationships.
Absolutely. I really like that graphic as well. And I didn't talk too much about the similarity between that graphic and Heather Strine-Patterson's graphic. But there are distinctions between that hierarchy, the divisional level versus the departmental level, and kind of considerations at both of those different levels. Just, things to think about.
Thank you again, Kate. To keep us on schedule here, as we conclude today's session, I want to thank Kate, Sarah, and the SAIL Professional Learning and Development Committee for their support and their help in bringing you today's conversation. A recording of our structured conversation and the associated materials, along with a link that you can use to provide some feedback for us, will be shared with you via email and will be available on SAIL's website. Please do join us for SAIL's Professional Development Committee structured conversation in May. We will have a treat. Dan A. Bureau will be joining us to talk about CAS and effectively implementing CAS standards for student affairs continuous improvement efforts. That's on Thursday, May 16th. And we also hope to have some of you present in the future. And if you can submit a proposal by visiting the link on the screen, which hopefully I shared successfully. Am I sharing my screen? I am. Okay, great. And the proposal form also includes instructions for you how to contact us if you want to chat about the presentation, but it's a little early to submit, so we're happy to do that too. Well, it's 3 o'clock and we're right on time here, so I want to thank everybody. And we'll see you at the next chat.